when I was a child, and so I never did anything about school. I said, but I see how important it is. And he didn't relent. So I told him that I was going to, if worse comes to worse, I was going to see if the newspaper would take a story like this. And that he wasn't interested in. He says, I tell you what, we'll give Mark, allow Mark to take the courses. If he passes, even if he, as long as he passes, we'll give him the college entrance. Evidently, he passed it because that's where he is now.
Well, actually, I remember you used to. I hung around with a bunch of kids in junior high school. Kind of tough kids, and our whole thing was you don't want to go to school, that's being a sissy. So I didn't really have a real good background, and I remember you and Mom traipsing into school. I would see you and I went, oh my God, they're going to the administration, I don't know what they're talking about. But what they did because of you is they started a pilot program for people like me who could do well in the standardized tests, but that were not doing that well in school. So it looked like you had the intellect, but for some reason we're not using it. And because of what you and Mom did, they created that, which I thought was pretty amazing. And I thought that was also one of the reasons, because you were annoyed at the school district, that we moved to Albany. I remember you were really annoyed at that whole thing.
When they told me that they're not going to. How could you tell a child is not college material when he's just in junior high school? I said, once he hits high school and you see this, you can put him into, you can sort of convince him to do differently. But I said, at that age, you can't do it. Well, they never agreed with me, but...
no, you were relentless. The other thing you did with me, I remember, to this day, I remember, is Bob, you always read quite a bit. You were a big reader. I was not a reader. I didn't like reading, but you noticed that I like sports. And I remember you said this to me. You're always using psychology, so you said, look, you enjoy sports, right? And I said, yeah. And I said, do you enjoy reading about sports? And I said, yes. And you said, okay, do me a favor. Here's what I want you to do. Every day I want you to take the New York Times, and I want you to read the New York Times sports page. And I don't know if you remember, there was a sports writer by the name of Arthur Young, who was fairly articulate for a sports writer. And they also had other sports writers in the New York Times who, although they were sports writers, they wrote very well. And so I started reading the New York Times sports page because she told me to do that, and then from there on started reading other things in the New York Times that interested me. But I remember you were doing that, trying to use psychology to force me to be somewhat academic. And you were constantly always on my back to do that. And I appreciate it, because I wouldn't have done it on my own. I think a lot of it was the environment, people that I hung around with, that sort of thing. Because they were an academic, I wanted to be in with the crowd, which is to be as unacademic as they were. But you were always there telling me, in the back of my head, I could always hear your statement saying, you don't have any choice, you're going to college. You don't have any choice. Everybody, every child of mine has to go to college. Without your being relentless, you know, I definitely wouldn't have done it. And I think about that, because I think about kids that don't have that. I think about some of my friends back in Hampton Manor and what happened to them that were doing that same thing and probably never went anywhere because they didn't have parents that cared. They didn't have parents that were pushing them. So I appreciate your doing it. At the time, I hated your guts. At the time, I thought you were the meanest guy, and it just drove me crazy. But on the other hand, deep down, I thought, yeah, you're probably right. You probably know what you're talking about. And you'd always told me about your frustrations.
What you didn't realize is that money that we put out for that 1 year was probably our entire savings.
I didn't know that.